tshona njani mthwakazi omuhle Zimbabwe muhle khwazwayi muri Zimbabwe eita hola Zimbabwe muhle muri Zimbabwe. If you're tuning in right now, welcome wherever you are. Welcome to The Connection Live Talk, Studio 7's very own youth program that targets tackling anything and everything youth related. Muri Zimbabwe mthwakazi omuhle, we're coming to you from my apartment, and today is Tuesday, February 15, 2022. Mthwakazi omuhle Zimbabwe muhle. I'm your host, Mike Hove. Once again, Zimbabwe muhle muri Zimbabwe wonke umuntu ongenayo kuhlelo siyakwamukela kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo. Welcome. Phano pachirongwa chedu chidiki muri Zimbabwe, chirongwa The Connection. Mwineni Mike Hove. I'm your humble and most gracious host, Mike Hove. We're coming to you from my apartment in Washington DC muri Zimbabwe. Nasi mchirongwa chedu chidiki namhlanje kuhlelo lwethu labasakhulayo. Tonight on The Connection, we're going to be speaking to youth media experts about the 2022 World Radio Day commemorations. However, the conversation is not just going to be ending there, Muri Zimbabwe. We're also going to be focusing on the March by-elections that are soon approaching. We're going to be talking to media experts about both World Radio Day commemorations and the upcoming by-elections, but we're also going to be joined by youth who are contesting, or youth who are vying for public office in the March by-elections. Now, unfortunately, muri Zimbabwe, as usual, tonight's program is a pre-recorded broadcast. What this means is that you, our loyal listeners, will not be able to join us live as per usual. However, you can still send your messages via WhatsApp, or you can write your comments in the comment section on our 3 Facebook pages where we're broadcasting as we speak, that being VOA Shana, VOA Ndebele, and of course VOA Studio 7. For our YouTube fanatics, we're also broadcasting on YouTube as we speak, Muri Zimbabwe. Go ahead and check that broadcast out. The official YouTube page is at VOA Zimbabwe. I repeat, at VOA Zimbabwe. And for our website fanatics, we're broadcasting on our 3 web pages as we speak, that being www.voandebele.com, www.voastudio7.com, and of course, my apologies, www.voazimbabwe.com, and of course www.voashana.com. So ngempela, let me repeat that. Our web page is Muri Zimbabwe, just for those who missed it, www.voazimbabwe.com, www.voashana.com, and of course www.voandebele.com. So go ahead, Muri Zimbabwe, and catch us. Pindai phano pachirongwa chedu chidiki uhlelo The Connection. Ningakhohlwi ngempela ukufitizela lapha yokubhalela ukuthi like njalo okubhala ukuthi share. Muri Zimbabwe msakhanqana ukuthinya phaya phakanze like uyezwe phakanze share kwitra kuthone chirongwane uwantu wedu ukuze sibukele uhlelo lethu labasakhulayo. Sibo ngobunengi bethu Zulukandaba asibona ukuthi ngempela sisonke like so thilithose phano phachirongwa chedu chidiki. So Zulukandaba, don't forget share button, like button, so that we see that we're together here on The Connection. Now, as usual, Muri Zimbabwe, first up, an update of COVID-19 before we delve deeper into our program today. Now, according to the most recent information released by Zimbabwe's Ministry of Health and Childcare, Zimbabwe currently has 231,603 COVID-19 cases, 223,337 recoveries, and 5,374 deaths. Now, last night alone, 222 new cases were detected, 204 recoveries, and some amazing news, 0 deaths. To date, when we're talking about the amount of people who have taken the COVID-19 vaccine, 4,315,627 have taken the first jab of the COVID-19 vaccine, and of course, 3,346,937 have taken both the first and the second jab of the COVID-19 vaccine. So that's the amount of people who are fully vaccinated against the COVID-19 pandemic. But whilst in the discussion of the vaccine, Muri Zimbabwe, we usually like to update you on information released by Zimbabwe's Ministry of Health. So let us head over to a clip that we have courtesy of the Ministry of Health and Childcare. whereby they're educating citizens on the importance of taking the COVID-19 vaccine. The above clip that you're about to watch is courtesy of Zimbabwe's Ministry of Health and Childcare. To watch the full clip, head over to their Twitter page, their Facebook page, and of course, their YouTube page.
Hello there. I'm here to give you the latest information and advice from the Ministry of Health and Childcare on COVID-19. Due to the recent surge in COVID-19 cases, the Ministry of Health and Childcare Zimbabwe encourages members of the public to get vaccinated against COVID-19. COVID-19 vaccines have been approved and are being rolled out for use in Zimbabwe today. These vaccines have met strict standards of safety, quality, and effectiveness set out by the Medicines Control Authority of Zimbabwe. It is a legal requirement that all vaccines and medicines used in our health facilities undergo rigorous testing, including all recommended clinical trials before they are approved for use. Currently, Zimbabwe is using Sinopharm and Sinovac, both from China, as well as Covaxin from India. The Ministry of Health and Childcare also recently approved the use of Sputnik V from Russia. The COVID-19 vaccines are being provided for free to all those who are eligible and want to protect themselves. Here are some advantages to being vaccinated. Getting vaccinated will help keep you from getting COVID-19. The vaccines currently available in Zimbabwe have been highly effective at preventing the disease. As an additional benefit, based on what we know about vaccines from other diseases and early data from clinical trials, experts believe that getting vaccinated may also keep you from getting seriously ill, even if you get COVID-19. And if that's not enough, getting vaccinated yourself may also protect people around you, particularly those at increased risk of severe illness, like the elderly or the immunocompromised. That's those that have an impaired immune system. COVID-19 vaccination is a safer way to help build protection. Getting COVID-19 may offer some natural protection known as immunity, but gaining immunity this way can have serious life-threatening complications. There is no way to know how COVID-19 will affect you, and if you get sick, you could end up spreading the disease to your family, to your friends, and to those around you. So vaccination is an alternative way to gain immunity by creating antibody responses without having to experience sickness.
Well, Muria Zimbabwe, you were saying there that was a message courtesy of Zimbabwe's Ministry of Health and Childcare. They were talking about the importance and the safety behind taking the COVID-19 vaccine. So that's it for our COVID-19 updates, Muria Zimbabwe. Now to delve into tonight's discussion, as I mentioned earlier on, first up, we're going to be tackling the 2022 World Radio Day commemorations. Now, this is a day that was set aside effective 2011 on the 13th of February by the United Nations. World Radio Day was set aside by the UN to commemorate the important role that radio has played towards educating, entertaining, and informing the global citizens on developments around their world. Now, this year, the commemorations were celebrated or commemorated under the theme Radio and Trust, which, of course, echoes the whole point behind what the day is all about, which talks more about the importance that radio does, the important role that radio plays in terms of educating people worldwide, in terms of informing people worldwide, in terms of entertaining people worldwide. Now, to hear more about the importance of this day in Zimbabwe, and of course the important role that radio plays in Zimbabwe, we're joined by media expert Ngosikona Diviti, who is the founder of Community Podium TV. He's also a multimedia journalist. So Ngosikona speaks to me more about the importance of World Radio Day, more about the relevance of radio when we talk about Zimbabwean society. And most importantly, as we continue our discussion, remember earlier on I said we're going to be focusing on by-elections too. We're going to be touching on the role that media is playing towards educating Zimbabweans when it comes to the by-elections, when it comes to voter registration. So let's head over to the conversation that I had with Nkosi Konaktiviti over Skype.
Thank you, Mike. I think radio has really played an integral part in terms of, promoting access to information and also getting information to people reliably. So and also the advent of the community radios, some were licensed recently. It helps us to reach to the remotest of communities and also help people to understand what is happening around Zimbabwe, and also to learn about what is taking place. We recently, in the height of COVID-19, we had some radio programs that were specific for children. We had some radio programs that were specific for raising awareness on COVID-19, because everyone was worried about what's going on, and radio played that role, because at least for radio, it's not like print media where you have to buy. You just switch on your radio, you listen to what is going on, find ways to fact check. You find that, Mike, now, that is with the advent of social media, there's a lot of stuff that flies around on WhatsApp created by different people, but radio has become the backbone of also fact checking for people who have no access to the internet, maybe to verify and things like that. So radio at grassroots level, for a grassroots Zimbabwean, it has become a major source of information. And we wish that these community radio stations will be allowed to also promote different languages and also promote content that is richly beneficial for specific communities. I'll give you an example. Sky's Metro in Bulawayo, its focus is Bulawayo. So you find that you can then tailor-make content that allows people to understand what's going on, even promote indigenous culture.
Now, speaking of radio, you briefly mentioned the internet. Now, with the coming of the internet, we've seen that traditional media really has been challenged. You mentioned issues of people getting their news on WhatsApp. When we focus on radio, we now see a lot of people coming up with podcasts. And of course, if one thing has been very obvious or very clear in recent times is that the youth are quickly more and more turning to the internet for their day-to-day news, day-to-day internet, day-to-day entertainment, education, etc., etc., etc. Now, how would you argue the internet has posed a challenge towards traditional media, radio, television, especially when we look at how people are consuming their news, how people are seeking entertainment, how people are receiving information, and how people are receiving education?
I think for us in Zimbabwe here, the internet has really contributed, towards, greater access to information at a more convenient way, and also at a time where you are comfortable, or at a specific time where you are comfortable to search for specifics in terms of information that you want, and also to look at specific issues like education, entertainment, and things like that. But Mike, the cost of data in Zimbabwe is exorbitant. Right now, if I tell you 8 gig data costs $23.
Wow.
So you can imagine what can you do? How much research can you do with 8 gig? What can you watch online with 8 gig? How can you, you can't be always online at that rate, because which means an ordinary citizen, for them to be online maybe for the whole month, they might need maybe 15 gigs, which is almost like $46. So,
Wow.
the cost of data vis-a-vis the remuneration that people get, it has become very difficult for people to rely on internet. Here we're just talking about the cost, but if you talk about accessibility as well, many people don't have access to the internet, especially in the remote area. So you find that internet in Zimbabwe is largely social media. You find that people use internet bundles, for example, like WhatsApp bundles specific, Twitter bundles specific, Facebook bundles specific. So we're saying in that connectivity of in that global connectivity, but in the Zimbabwe context, traditional media is fast migrating to the internet, but radio remains a key uh, link between communities, grassroots communities, and accessing information, because not everyone. Imagine I streaming a news on VOA online.
Mm-hmm.
How costly that would be. But if
Right.
I'm on radio, I can easily listen to the whole entire show
Mm-hmm.
without having a challenge. So with Zimbabwe and the cost of data, that contributes greatly in terms of the disruption between mainstream way of doing things and radio particularly, as it were. So I feel strongly that radio must be promoted in Zimbabwe as a source of information. I also saw a barometer that was done by Geopol. It was actually showing that VOA is one of the widely
Right.
listened radios in
Mm-hmm.
Zimbabwe, because that's where people can get access to information. But the online spaces, the advent of online, that is where we work as well, is the demographics. Even our Google Analytics show us that most people, consumers of our content, are not in Zimbabwe. Because
Mm-hmm.
those in Zimbabwe, those kind of economic constraints around, you can't spend $46 on internet without the other basics on food. So you can imagine even us migrating into digital online learning. It means it's for people who can afford.
Right.
Not every child could do that.
Now, speaking of education, news, and of course, radio, I want to link this discussion to another thing or something that's really happening in Zimbabwe that's really important. Here we're talking about the by-elections. So I'm really curious to hear from you as a media practitioner and someone who's really playing a role in educating the masses on voter registration, etc. What role do you think experts like yourselves or media practitioners should be doing towards, I guess, educating the masses on such an event? Or such events, not just the by-elections, but we know that in 2023 we have elections too.
I think for me, the media right now in Zimbabwe is largely reporting about, there is by-election, the number of people who have registered to vote, or the turnout being low, and the turnout being this, and things like that. But I feel strongly that the media should play a more constructive role around even doing civic education. You find that right now Zeki has put out all that information, but it's easier for those in the media like me to then unpack it to specific communities in specific languages, in a toned down language, so that people can easily understand. Because what we are getting now is there's a lot of polarization. And then if you're talking about by-elections, it's like you're politicking. So there's a bit of silence around, civic education being dealt with as civic education without going into politics. Right now, if we're saying people should register to vote, we're not prescribing that you should vote for who and not vote for who. But we're saying let the civic have access to information verified, such that we are able to then say, if there's a process like this that is taking place, I don't know if colleagues in the media have been sharing, some colleagues in the media have been sharing where the voter registration is taking place in different ways. Some will create electronic banners that you can share and put up on statuses and things like that. But I feel strongly that the media must play a very unique role when it comes to issues of civic education outside the politicking or the different perspective of different political parties and things like that. But we should constructively say we are dedicating weekly or daily or once every 2 days time to discuss and allow people to have conversations about civic education that include voter education, that include voter registration, that include people understanding what by-elections are, why they are by-elections, and things like that. But you find that largely the media is on the breaking news story kind of terrain, on the who said this and who didn't say the other. So we need that kind of holistic approach as media practitioners to then say, what input can we put so that people understand the processes that are happening within Zimbabwe outside the I said, she said, he said kind of reportage.
Now, once again, to go back to what I just highlighted briefly, you're a media expert who's, like I said, working, really doing amazing work when it comes to voter registration education. I'm curious to hear what challenges you faced, especially from a media point of view. What challenges have you faced when it comes to educating the masses about A, where to go register to vote, B, the procedure, C, the documentation, etc., etc. And not just people who are registering to vote, but even those who are registering to participate in these elections as candidates. What challenges have you faced educating these people on these procedures?
The challenge that we have faced, Mike, is media has had challenges. We have had challenges in terms of, packaging of information. You'll find that right now you cannot share certain information without the approval, without being accredited with the. We are in the media. We are already accredited by the Zimbabwe Media Commission. So I think that should suffice that I'm a journalist. I'm allowed to access information from ZEC. But you find that ZEC has its own processes that will require me to be accredited again with ZEC. Then if I want to cover a soccer match, I have to be accredited again with the Premier Soccer League. So it's a lot of accreditation that is a burden to us in media. Why? Because every process we need to be accredited. So right now, as media, we need to start getting accredited so that possibly we cover, by-elections and observe those elections. So which means it's another process that media has to go through. But I'm already an accredited journalist in Zimbabwe. So that is one of the challenges that we are facing in the media space, in us as doing our work around civic participation. Also, secondly, the other aspect is the framing of messages, generic messages about civic education. As we share that information, many people then think about politics. That so this media house is sharing a lot of information about this, so they are maybe interested in a certain political outing or fighting against another political outing, without understanding the role that media plays. Ours is to share information that is citizens that can help citizens to make smart decisions, but also the aspect of, okay, how do we balance between reporting what is happening and not be linked to saying you are exposing this and the other. So right now it's a tough terrain that we are in, because if you report that this is what is happening I'll give an example of a voter registration center, for example. Some stakeholders will feel like you are trying. What are you trying to do? What are you trying to do? You are exposing our work. You are exposing the gaps and things like that. So we are largely turning our industry into a PR industry, where saying out the truth can have a lot of backlashes, where reporting what is happening can bear the burden of having backlashes. You talk about access to national identity documents by young people. It's a big issue. But if you, as media, as we push that issue, then people will think it's politicking. Yeah, you are politicking this and you are politicking about the other. So that is the my worry about the sector, because the sector there is no freedom, uh, for us to do our work as journalists. So that is something that needs to be looked at. So it's like you are checking your bag all the time as you do this work. So it's a serious crisis that we have in Zimbabwe, that the role of media, the role of journalism has not been clearly understood by different stakeholders. It could be government, it could be the state, it could be even security. Because security can think you are doing this, you are that. While you are just a journalist or in the media doing and reporting what is happening on the ground.
Alright, TVT bengicela ukuthi sihlaziye lolu daba ngolwimi lukamama ngesindebele ngamafishane. Let's start with ngokuqakatheka kosuku lwe-World Radio Day olunanzwa phansi kwendikimba ethi Radio and Trust. Awusitshela umbono wakho ngokuqakatheka kwalolu suku.
I-World Loxen Radio Day iqakatheke kakhulu, ikakhulu kithi ku-media, ngoba i-radio yesincedisayo kakhulu ukuthi sixhumane labantu abasezindaweni ezitshiyeneyo, njalo sixhumana silawo benjalo akuduri njengalokho ukuxhumana nje kwebulenjini okuthiwa i-internet le. So kulula kakhulu ukuthi abantu bexoxe, basenda ama-WhatsApp message, bathini beresponda to ama-program abephuma ku-radio. Sikubone kakhulu ngesikhathi se-COVID-19 ukuthi i-radio idlale indima enkulu kakhulu ukuthi sizwisise ukuthi ukuhamba njani elizweni. Ngikhumbula kulesikhathi sakuthi nsuku zonke abantu babelalelisisa kakhulu i-radio ngoba ukhalela ukuthi uzwe ukuthi mhlawumbe kufa abantu abangaki, kumbe aba-affectiweyo bangaki, into ezinjengazona lezo. Ibiqakatheke kakhulu i-radio, and sikhangelela ukuthi nxa i-radio ingaba nengi njalo abantu bavunyelwe ukuthi baproduce ama-program ahambelana lezigaba or izindawo abakizo, kungancedisa kakhulu ukuthuthukisa izigaba njalo lokupromotha information engathi iqondile, ongayisiyo le ephongubhalwa ngubani noma ngubani WhatsApp thumele abantu into ezingaqondanga kumbe ezingekho verified.
Siyezwa eningi labasakhulayo besithi ikakhulukazi kulezi nsuku bathanda ukwamukela indaba zabo, i-news, i-entertainment, besebenzisa i-internet, inkundla yalezi nsuku, besebenzisa abo-Facebook, abo-WhatsApp, abo-Twitter, abo-Instagram. Ubona ngani i-radio yona ngokwayo abantu abasakhulayo balokhu beqhubekela phambili ukwamukela na?
Ngombono wami abantu abatsha abasalaleli i-radio ngabantu emaphandleni kumbe esingathi abangekho emadolobheni, ngoba abasemadolobheni sebethanda le kuthiwa i-internet, ukuthi nxa efuna ukulalela into uyazikhethela, nxa kuyingoma uyazisetshela ingoma ayilalele, nxa i-information ayidinga uyazisetshela azivulele i-information leyana. Kodwa esengubona futhi eZimbabwe kuluhlupho ukuthi intengo ye-internet kumbe singathi idatha isidula kakhulu ukuthi abantu abatsha abaningi abasakwanisi ukuthi esingathi khona benze konke kade bengabe befisa ukuthi bekwenze. Bengabe besesikolo, bengabe besebenza, bengabe besenza ama-research atshiyeneyo. Kusuka kube nzima ngoba i-internet yakhona iyadura, njalo awungeke ukwanise ukuthi ukwenze khona ilanga lonke uzisebenzisele nje ungakhangelanga ukuthi idatha yakho isisele inganani. So yikho uhlupho olukhona, kodwa i-radio iyancedisa futhi lalabo abasemaphandleni, ngoba khathesi ngiyake ngizwe ishow ye-Ministry of Youth, Ministry of Primary and Secondary Education, sorry, bebefundisa grade 1, grade 2. Angazi ukuthi inhlelo zakhona nxa zingekho ku-radio yiziphi ezinye indlela lezo nhlelo eziyenziwa khona, ngoba zange ngizibone online. So yiyo into eqakatheke nge-radio ngoba ile ndlela yoku-reach out even to the poor people, ngoba khathesi andiyabona ukuthi sokule-separation phela, abalolutho labangalalutho. Igap yakhona isinkulu kakhulu ngoba abale-access to money and they have access to the internet. Abangela sebezalalela ki-radio ngoba yabukwazi ukuthi hayi i-radio yami nxa ngayicharger ngiyakwazi ukulalela 2-3 days ngiyibisele emagrosa njalo ngiyayi-charge, kuba lula kakhulu.
Njengoba uyasho ngempela ukuthi ikakhulukazi emaphandleni iningi labantu balokho beqhubekela phambili bekwamukela i-radio. Sikhangela okwenzakalayo elizweni manje, siyezwa ukuthi ngoMarch ama-by-elections ayeza. Ubona ngani ingcwethi, especially intatheli zindaba, those working in radio, ubona ngani badlala indima eqakathekile nxa sisikhangela indaba yokufundisa uZulu angalolu hlelo lokuyobhalisela ukuyovota njalo ukuphuma ngokuyovota?
Imedia le radio sibili kule ndima enkulu esiyidlalayo ngoba khathesi santu yabona ukuthi khathesi uhlupho solukhona ukuthi endabeni zama-by-election, endabeni zokuvota, zokubhalisa ukuvota, kulama-message amaningi achiyeneyo abhodabhodayo lapha kuma-WhatsApp. So i-radio or imedia sokumele ukuthi ithathe umlando wokuthi khona nxa abantu belembuzo njengokuthi uze umuntu esematobe kubuza ukuthi kanti nxa ngavota ngo-2018 ngibhalisa kutsha yini. So ukuthi kuma-communities lapha kulamanye ama-sources of information angayisiwo lawo esiwajayeleyo ayiwo akhuluma information eqondileyo. So ukuthi imedia sokumele ukuthi ithathe zona lezo indaba ezikhulunywayo nje esingathi ngesikhiwa i-grapevine, si-create i-content ehambisana i-addressa inkinga zona lezi ezikhona okungaba singathi ngama-information gaps ngesikhiwa angabe khona kuma-communities. Kwesinye isikhathi siyakwazi ukuthi ulalele uhlelo ku-radio incede isiNdebele kawusizwa kuhle usebhinga. Sibe le nhlelo futhi ezenziwa ngesiTonga. Nxa i-community radio sikhona abantu bekhulunyiswe ngesiTonga bazwisise ukuthi kuthiwani nxa kuthiwa kuyabhaliswa, kuthiwani nxa kuthiwa kulama-by-election. Ngoba abanye ingxenye khathesi sebelungiselela ukuthi bayavota mhla ka-26 bengakwazi ukuthi indawo yabo kayila by-election, indawo lama-by-election yile laleya. Abanye khathesi mayiki bayakutshela ukuthi sokuvotwa khathesi akusavotwa ngo-2023 antiyabo. So into imedia should be dealing with yona leyo ukuthi abantu banikwe information ecorrect, ba-explainelwe. And futhi esengunanzelela ukuthi imedia kwesinye isikhathi siya-assume ukuthi abantu bayakwazi ukuthi by-election kuyini, bayakwazi ukuthi nxa sokuthiwa by-election kuyabe kuhambe njani. Kumele ukuthi abantu bazwisise ukuthi nxa kuthiwa by-election kutshoni, nxa kuthiwa harmonized election kutshiwoni, ngoba ama-election amachiyeneyo ayenzakala ngendlela ezitshiyeneyo ngama-circumstances atshiyeneyo. So khonkhana kuqakathekile ukuthi sithi ezimedia ke siye ku-basics nje siye-explainer ukubhalisa ukuvota kutshoni, ngoba omunye umuntu uyathi ngabhalisa ngo-1996 ukubhalisa konke kwa-1996 akusasebenzi ngoba ku-biometric voter registration. So nxa ungayenzanga lokho ukuthi uyathatha ifoto uthathe lama-fingerprints akho ukuthi awubhalisanga kubo.
Well, muri eZimbabwe sithanda ukubonga unkosi khona Dibiti tinotenda zvikurusa kune mutapiwe nawo vaDibiti aivatangaiti navo pano pachirongwa chedu chevechidiki tichize nyaya yezuva reWorld Radio Day, zuva rakanangana nekupemberera kana kucherechedza mabasa anoitwa nevatapiwe nawo vanonyanyoshanda paredhiyo. Isu ana Michael vari pastudio 7 aiwa tinotenda zvikurusa muri eZimbabwe. VaDibiti vaziya zvakare nyaya yema-by-elections vachiti aiwa vatapiwe nhau vane basa rakakosha zvikurusa patinotarisa nyaya yekupa vanhu ruzivo ruzere nezvema-by-elections kana kuti sarudzo dziri kuuya idzi muna March. Imi muri kuzvionawo sei muri eZimbabwe? Tipewo maondero enyu, nyorai ma-comments mu-comment section. But now, whilst on the discussion, muri eZimbabwe, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, we're going to be speaking to the youth themselves who are contesting in the upcoming by-elections. Ezra Chisasvanda recently caught up with Beauty Mabena, who is a member of the CCC, who was talking about the importance of voter registration for the youth, and of course, telling us more about her party. So let's head over to our conversation.
Yes, Beauty Mabena, ubanda likhona la.
Mina ngikuthi province yabontanga.
No, province yabontanga la. Ku-youth.
Ku-youth.
Right. Akusitshele nge-CCC. Ithini phandle kuthiwa ngiyani?
I-CCC libandla elihamba nobaba uChamisi. Ibandla elivela khatshana, ibandla leli kutshintshwe ibizo kuphela laba yi-CCC lisuka ku-MDC Alliance laselisiba yi-CCC Citizen Coalition for Change.
Okay, kudala wakuyiphi wena?
Kudala bengiku-MDC Alliance ebihamba futhi
ngafika la ezoku-MDCT
ngangiku-MDCT ngasuka ku-MDCT ngabuya ku-Alliance ngasuka ku-Alliance ngabuya ku-Triple C.
ulibona njani ibandla lakho lingene njani ebantwini lapho?
Ibandla leli lingenile kakhulu ebantwini sibili, abantu balithanda libandla abalithandayo kakhulu ukuthi nxa mina njengontanga nxa singena ku-ground sibona sibili ukuthi abantu bahlukumezekile kakhulu, bafisa ukuthi ngabe ibandla leli liyathatha umbuso kube libandla lizatshintsha umphakathi, libe libandla lizatshintsha iZimbabwe.
Kulesikhathi ehlala likhuluma ukuthi sokurigwa ama-elections lidliwe i-field of ibingekho level, khathesi kuyini okutshintshile lifuna ukungena ama-elections la?
Ukudliwa okudlulileyo besirigwa sibili ibandla leli beliwina, kodwa ngendlela ekade kusenziwa ngayo kuma-election process ebisenziwa ibingasisuthisi thina njengebandla, ibingasisuthisi kokwenza ukuthi lathi sihlale simile silokhu siqinisele sithembele ukuthi abantu njengoba kuyibo abavotayo bazavota vele ngokufanayo, bazalivotela ibandla leli ukuze liwine.
Kuyini kodwa kuzatshintsha phela amabhena njengoba ongatshintshanga kulana iminyaka yaphelele zakuzigiwe? Kuyini kuzatshintsha thesi ukuthi lingajotshela amavoti lihlale siliyajotshela?
Khathesi njengebandla le-Triple C lelonanzelelo lokuthi kumele lathi njenge-Triple C kuma-polling station kumele ama-results ahlabalwe khonapho kungathiwa ukuthi ama-results kumele ahambe ayebalelwa eHarare esuka ku-polling station, ama-results kabalelwe khona lapho.
Lapho zama ukuthi kudeclare khona be-polling station.
Kudeclare kusho ukuthi ibandla elinje so libe lama-results angaka, ibandla elinje kumele libe
angayihlanganise eHarare.
Abese siyahlanganiswa eHarare, kodwa sesikwazi sesilama-figures awonke ama-polling station, ngoba okuyenza ukuthi kungaphumi inamba e-right ukuthi abelala ehamba ngobusuku esiyaHarare, kube sokusiba lama-changes khona lapha endleleni esiyafika eHarare sokube le-rigging eyabisenza.
Obulawayo lapha kodwa libambene ibandla lakho mbese lengani lokudla ukuthi
ya kwabulawayo ibandla libambene kulalaphana lalaphana kusasa yi-alliance kade kungane kulama differences khona njengebandla, kodwa kwakhathesi sibone ngane hayi sesibuyele sesibambene njenge-Triple C.
Khathesi ke uthini kwabatsha abarejistanga phela ukuvota lapha kobulawayo? Kuyayangisa lokho amasithi amabili enqaza hamba oluthini njengomuntu omutsha.
Mina njengomuntu omutsha sikhuthaza ngithanda ukuthi ngikhuthaze wonke abantu abatsha ukuthi lapha esikhona asikhuthazeni nabantu. Mina lami nginje khona lapha ngiyakhuthaza amanye ama-youth ukuthi sihambeni siye-register ukuze amasithi lawa singathatheli. Ngiyakhuthaza abanye abantu abatsha ukuthi asihambeni siye-register njengabantu abatsha, ngoba umbuso lo kumele utshintshwe yithi abantu abatsha. I-future ngeyethu njengabantu abatsha, so ukuthi sibe le future eqhakazekileyo ukuthi thina abantu abatsha sisukume siye-register ukuze sihambe senelisa ukuthi siyevota.
Kambe kulo bandlulweni kubandla lakho?
Ibandla leli alilabandlululo, ibandla leli alilabandlululo, liyathatha wonke umhlobo, Khalanga, Tonga, Shona, Ndebele, alilabandlululo, sisebenza ndawonye njengebandla.
Ongukamuri yeZimbabwe mabva kunzwa kune wechidiki webato re-CCC iyo inotungamirwa naVanelson Chamisa ari kubulawayo uko anga achitsanangura zvizere nezvebato ravo achiti aiwa vanhu vakawanda vari kugamuchira zvirongwa zvavo, vanhu vakawanda vari kugamuchira bato ravo re-CCC. Ari kuti ivo sebato vari kutarisira zvekare sarudzo dzema-by-elections dziri kuuya muna March. Ari kukurudzira wechidiki wose hanzi budai neuwandu hwenyu muchindonyoresa kundovhota. So that there was a Beauty Mabena speaking to VOA correspondent Ezra Chisasbanda about the CCC party led by Advocate Nelson Chamisa, talking about the voter registration program. Mabena there is saying, wechidiki, the youths, Hansi, go out in your numbers and register to vote. Now, let's also hear from the president of LEAD, Linda Masarira, who talks more about what's in store for her political party. The next clip that you're about to watch is an interview that was done with Open Parley ZW, where Linda Masarira explains more. To watch the full interview, head over to their Facebook page.
My name is Linda Tsungirirai Masarira, the founding president of Labour Economists and African Democrats, a 100% wholly grown Pan-Africanist party in Zimbabwe. As lead, we were 100% prepared for the elections, but unfortunately the proclamation came before we had put our finances in order, and in as much as we would have wanted to fill all the available vacant seats, we are now limiting ourselves to a few seats that we think we can actually get them after the elections. But it was our hope and our wish to field all the candidates for the vacant seats, but the financial constraints have limited us. We are a party that is only 2 years old, that is preaching to developmental issues, that is preaching to devolution, that is speaking to depolarization of our political economy and decolonization of mindsets. And as such, we will continue mobilizing and recruiting and preparing financially for the 2023 harmonized elections. And for these by-elections, we're just going to participate on a few seats that we think we can actually win, and we are going to work very hard to ensure that we win those very few parliamentary and council seats that we are going to run.
Well, Maria Zimbabwe, you're hearing there from Muzare Linda Masarira speaking about the plans that her political party has in terms of the upcoming by-elections and, of course, the 2023 elections. Now, as we wrap up Maria Zimbabwe, let's head over to a conversation that we had with another young person who's going to be contesting in the upcoming by-elections. His name is Kudakwashe Muntsanga, who's contesting in Binga, representing ZANU-PF. Let's hear more from Mr. Muntsanga.
It's an exciting journey, man, especially the fact that I'm representing the ruling party, which has been known since memoriam for fielding older candidates. Now, in the new dispensation, the playground is open, where young people are also entering the political terrain, no matter the challenges, but here we are, standing for Binga North constituency.
Right. I like that you mentioned that, because that was actually going to be my follow-up on that, is that for a very long time, when we look at politics in general, not just in Binga, but politics in general, it's been very unfavorable for the youth. That's why we have, for example, all these quotas being petitioned in Parliament, the youth quota, etc. As a young person who's vying for public office, do you think that this landscape is changing?
Yes, the landscape is changing. It's changing very, very much because firstly, the young people are actually encouraged to enter politics, maybe because of world dynamics. And secondly, the young people, maybe when they see certain things that they perceive to be wrong, they have said, okay, we also want to get in there and then have our voices heard. But the main challenge, perhaps the reason why young people have not been taking this up is because of resources. As you are aware that this game requires resources, especially when it comes to primary elections, because the major parties would require you to go through primary election where nobody will support you. So because of those resources that are injected, young people, most of the times they've been secluded to that.
Now, I want to talk about, I've spoken to other young experts who really are of the opinion, and I like that you mentioned that obviously you're running on the ruling party ticket. A lot of young people are of the opinion that party politics really is not favorable for abantu abasakhulayo, merely because the reins are really are generally held by people of the older generations. Hence why, especially like in the last election, we saw a lot of young people running as independent candidates. What are your thoughts on those perspectives where they feel that being part of a political party really makes it very difficult for the youth of the nation who want to enter into these positions and live up to some of these promises, but because of party politics, it makes it difficult?
You know, the problem with power, the moment you test power, is very difficult to leave power. So the old people have been in power for some time now. So for them just leave power, it's very, very difficult. It takes amount of energy, amount of hard work to be able to remove some of them. So, and most of the old people feel threatened by the ascendance of young ones, because as young, brilliant minds are coming up, the old face challenges in terms of competition, may it be in terms of the parliament, may it be in terms of ministerial positions. So because of all that, the youth would actually come to the old. Hence, the reason why they will, by all means necessary, try to shut the youth, or the door for the youth. And like I mentioned earlier on as well, they all have accumulated wealth over years. They've worked hard for it, and they use that as well in order to shut the door. The old people also know all the tricks, whether it's tricks to or on the primary election. They know how to go about the primary election. So at times, no matter how famous you are, but as long as you don't know the game, you don't know the trick, you fall by the wayside. But what I'm glad is that the new dispensation, when they came in particular my province, they've said, no. Let's give opportunities to young people. The new dispensation has said, let's have youth quota, because they've seen that we need to encourage young people to come up. So the terrain is changing. We might not expect it to change as fast as we would want as young people, but it's changing slowly. And our ascendance, like myself, is a clear testimony to that affair.
Now, let's focus on Binga itself as a constituency. What challenges are people facing in Binga that you are hoping, if you're elected for public office, will be able to change?
There are a number of issues that we need to be addressed. Issues that come from the economic aspect, the employment aspect. We need employment as the people of Binga. The social aspect, we need better schools, we need better roads, we need better clinics as the people of Binga. We need water as the people of Binga. So those are the issues that we are coming in and attending to aggressively. And as I speak right now, a lot is being done.
So what would you then say to a person who feels, as you highlighted, yes, the opposition has been running these councils for the longest of periods, but someone might look at it and say, but ZANU-PF is running the country for the longest of periods. And so why should they confide and trust you to bring about that change on a ZANU-PF ticket?
You see, I always like the statement that the president always says that what that means is that as a people, you ought to be introspective. You ought to begin within your district rather than blaming the government. What are we doing as the people of Binga in order to bring the desired development? As long as you have got an MP who is not linked to the central government, it means you always remain on the backward front. We have yet MPs who are not connected to government. So the moment they go there, ministers will just look at them and say, oh, we are advancing the kingdom of the devil. Why should we assist him? So as a result, if an MP from Uzumba Pungwe comes, you get priority because there is ZANU-PF there. If an MP from Binga comes, oh, no one looks at him because there's opposition there. So that's why we are saying, let's just have a proper channel. Let's have an MP who is linked to government, so that that MP can keep knocking on the government's doors to say you have people who voted for you in Binga. That's what we are correcting.
But surely isn't that unfair? Because what you're implying is that unless you're not the governing party, it's difficult for opposition for them to operate within those terrains.
No. Well, what we are saying, it doesn't necessarily mean that government is not doing a lot. Government is doing a lot in terms of school development, infrastructure development. Even right now, the devolution funds, clinics are being built, but it also requires local efforts in order to expedite the process, because it can't be done maybe in a year, especially the new dispensation. When the new dispensation took over, devolution came into play. We have a lot of things that are happening, including the tarring of the roads that we've been crying for many years to say this road has to be tarred. It's being done. But all we are saying is that it would have been better if we had an MP who comes from ZANU-PF. We can also do the other things from the other end.
All right, now let's particularly shift this conversation and focus on the youth. This is a youth program, so I'd like to hear more about the youth.
Yes.
Let's talk about what you're proposing for the youth of Binga. What do you have in store for them if you are elected?
Perfect. Our campaign has been pushed by the youth. We as young people, we came together and we said this is a revolution, a social change, a total social change. What do we want as youth? What are we pushing and what am I promising? We are working on what I call a parallel industrialization program that is aimed at industrializing Binga towards Vision 2030. We want to create industries in Binga. If there's a place that is rich in Zimbabwe, it's Binga. So we want to have industries in Binga. We want to make sure that we do value addition within those industries. We want to identify our key economic drivers as people of Binga, the agriculture, the fishing, the tourism, the mining. And then within those key economic drivers, we are set to establish companies. Right now, some are starting to open, some investors already on the ground, identifying opportunities that are in Binga. Then from there, we can industrialize Binga and make Binga an economic hub of Zimbabwe. That's our promise, and that's where we center our manifesto on development, development, and development alone, based on the economic aspect.
Okay. Before we before we wrap up just to kind of recap on what we've been talking about, ngomkhankaso wakho njengoba ungomunye wabasakhulayo ozabengena kukhetho lwama-by-elections.
Ngiyabonga baba Hove, sikhangelane ama-by-election elizwe lonke lapho esikhetha khona 28 constituencies eBinga North lathi sile by-election esilayo lapha esikhangelela khona ukukhetha ongasimelela edale leparliamente. Silabantu abangu-5 abacontestayo beBinga. Kodwa i-ruling party izanu-PF i-candidate yayo ngokuda kwashe Mavla Msaka enguye umuntu esikhangelele sonke eBinga ukuthi sisukume kuningi bethu semvotela ngoba ngumuntu oletha i-development intuthuko eBinga esingathi ngesitonga uyanda kwethala usumbuko okunokulindiswe donse beyathunyamphuke bachakula bonse beyamachembele dwambrabo tuyinke beyathuka muvotele Musaka uzwa kukalonga akambuka ukuthi uyanda kwethala usumbuko okulindiswe. So yikho esikutsho lokhu baba Hove ukuthi sifuna ukuletha intuthuko eBinga thina singabatsha abasakhulayo, whether siku-agriculture sifuna ukubambana siqalise ukulima, whether sifuna ukuvula ama-industries abanye kade sesibanika imali beqasa ama-project labo mama labo siyabanceda nje abasakhulayo beqasa ama-project konke siyakwenza eBinga sikhangelana nelo khetho olubuyayo umhla ka-26. Mind you ngahamba kuma-primary election lapho engawawina khona nge-record margin engazayibonakala eBinga. I-confidence yabatsha ukuthi hatshi kuyenzeka lokho siyakuncengisa kuyaphumelela.
Sesikhangela-ke inhlupho zabasakhulayo ikakhulukazi eBinga, awusitshela okuningi nalokho.
Inhlupho zabo kakhulu abakhalela yimisebenzi abasakhulayo. Abasakhulayo okunye lokhu amanzi ukhalela ngomama okunye but abasakhulayo bakukhangelele yimisebenzi. Sifuna imisebenzi uthi lathi sikwanisa ukusebenza sikwanisa ukugcina imuli zethu. Yiluhlupho lwabo kakhulu. Ngakho nje yikho siqasa ubanika ama-project 3 Empower Bank. Yikho siqasa ubavulela ama-company ukuthi bekwanisa ukusebenza, abanye bekwanisa ukuzisebenzela, bekwanisa uku-utilize ama-resources abo abalawo eBinga for the benefit of impilo zabasakhulayo. So yi-problem yawena leyo imisebenzi.
Kodwa wena ungakhethwa ukuba ngummeli ku-council for iBinga, bayengicela ukuchasisela abasakhulayo abalaleli bonke ukuthi what exactly do you have in store for abantu abasakhulayo uzabayenzela ukulungisisa inhlupho zabo?
Ingakhethwa kudale leparliamente sisebenza labadala bethu umongameli welizwe ubaba Comrade Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. Silama programs amaningi kakhulu esiwafakeleyo eceleni kwabatsha. Amanye akhona njengoba ngikhulumile ukuthi siyabanika imali zokuthi beqasa ama-project bayiqalisa ukuthi abanye bayenza, abanye bakhona sincediswa nguhulumende ukuvula ama-company azwayo, silama investment esiwenzayo lohulumende okuthiwa i-venture capital ubavulela ama-company, sifuna ubavulela i-company yokulungisa amasaka khona eBinga. Abanye bakhona sifuna ukuthi beqasa uncediswa ukuthi beqasa uprocess amatemba eBinga, becha i-packaging yabo eBinga, behambisa kuma-supermarkets bekhona ngale eBinga. Abanye bakhona sikuma ama-investors ukuthi besenzele ama-plantation, ama-fruit kwenza ukuthi kuprocesswe abatsha bethola imisebenzi. Abanye bakhona bazabe besebenza eblayo crow i-irrigation enkulu elizwe lonke. Khathesi ibhizi khathesi isithuthukiswa i-irrigation lay after i-new dispensation. So kubhizi abatsha laba sebengena imisebenzi. So kuningi sibile sokuthembisa abatsha. Kulabanye labo futhi abaye esikolweni siyabalungisela izikolo sibhizi khathesi. Abanye bebekhala ama-center number ukuthi sibhalela khatshana sisebenza gadalala lo Ministry of Education ukuthi bephiwa ama-center number abatsha bebhalele lapha abafundela khona bengahambi imango emide siyabhala ama-exams. Abanye sabanceda njalo amabhuku. Last week sasidonate amabhuku kuma-library esikolo ukuthi abatsha befunde, bengafunda nxa sebesijoyina lapha ama-company sebesilawo laba besebefunde kakhulu. Abanye sibancedisa ngezikolo lezo abatsha abafundela kizo ukuthi lazo zithuthukiswe. Sincedisana njalo lohulumende ngemali zakhe azifaka lezi ze-devolution ukuthi izikolo ziyakho ezinengi.
Now, Kuda, this one I'm going to ask in SQ so that everybody really understands. Lapho kwangena umongameli when President Mnangagwa took over the reins in 2017, I remember very vividly he promised the youth jobs, 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 jobs. 2022, the youth of the nation are still crying about jobs, jobs, jobs. And so why should, especially if we look at your constituency, why should the youth trust that you would then be able to deliver on promises that happened, that started in 2017, but still are yet to be delivered on?
Firstly, what we need to correct is the distortion that employment has not been created. It's just that it has not fallen in the hands of those critics. Employment is being created. And right now, if you go to shops, 85% of the products in our supermarkets are locally made. Why? It's because industries are starting to come up. It's a process. It won't happen overnight. Rome was not built in a day. It's a process. Industries are coming up. Manufacturing industries are coming up. The mining industries is amazingly coming up. Go, for example, in Matnot in Wange. So many power companies are starting up, such that in a year or so, we'll be exporting excess power. People don't know that. The problem with the ZANU-PF is that we are not announcing some of these developments that are happening. Look at the mining companies that are opening. Go to Marsh West today. Processing companies are opening. Marula processing plants are opening. A lot of companies are opening. But then, look, we are coming from a situation where we had a very, very high rate of unemployment. So it would take time to be able to absorb all those young people into the employment sector. But then, brick by brick, we are going to be building. It also takes you and me effort in order to increase the pace at which these young people should be employed. That's why we are saying now, as being a people, let's also be able to participate fully in the vision and try to create our own future-oriented lasting employment in Binga to complement the government efforts that they are doing. Because the government can't do alone. Yes, it's the biggest employer, but we also have to stand up and then utilize our resources and create employment rather than just crying while we are seated in our comfort zones.
Now, as we wrap up here, Kuda, I want to talk particularly about the voter registration. We hear ZEC announcing very, very low turnout numbers, especially amongst the youth of the nation. So I'm really curious to hear about your constituency perspective, to be exact. What are you doing as a candidate to ensure that the young people come out in their numbers, be it to vote for you or be it just to participate in the program in general?
We are coming up with a number of projects because the starting point is the education. Young people need to be educated in terms of their rights to vote and why is it important to vote. You see, our Black people have got that mentality where for them to go and vote, you need to give them sugar, you need to buy them beer for them to go and exercise their right. So the starting point, we are educating young people as to the reason why they should be able to go and exercise their right, why they should be able to vote. So we are doing voter education exercises within constituencies. And we are also assisting those young people, those who are far from the mobile registration centers, to be able to ferry them to mobile registration centers so that they can also register with ZEC, because the numbers, for sure, they are worrying in terms of the demographic trends of young people.
All right, Maria Zimbabwe, you're hearing there from Mr. Kuda Mtsanka, owebandla leZANU-PF ndiwo vari kukwikwidzira kubhinga uko vanga vachitaura zvizere nezvekampeni yavo vachange vachikwikwidzira musarudzo dzema-by-elections kubhinga uko vari pasi pebato reZANU-PF. Ivo vari kuti aiwa vakatarisira kubudirira, vakatarisira kuwina munhu wechidiki, saka vari kuti aiwa vechidiki vari kuvatsigira zvikuru. muri ezimbabwe tasvika kumagumo echirongwa chedu chanhasi sifikile emapetsolweni ohlelo lwethu labasakhulayo lokubona njani ngicela ukuthi liqhubekele phambili lifitizela lapha yokubhala ukuthi share msakangano ndanchikumbira kuti muendere mberi mutichinya bhaye pakanzi share kuitira kuti tione chirongwa neuwandu wedu. I go by the name of Mike Hove. Mtsokazo muhle Zimbabwe muhle isikhathi sami isesesileyo mangoyi. Let's meet same time, same place, here on The Connection, Studio 7's very own new program that targets tackling anything and everything youth related. Muri Zimbabwe at Mike Hove _ is my Twitter and Instagram.